Right, so we're on to festivals. It was a manic 7 days of festivals, as I'd already pointed out to you. We started with the Decoy Festival. Not quite as big a turnout in the end, there was 54 or something like that on it. So there's 3 lakes in, Beastie, Oak and Yew. Oak and Yew are the 2 strips. Yew had been really patchy, but to be honest, could be really, really tough. Wasn't, in all fairness, I don't think a lot of people wanted that to use that lake, but it was what the fishery had given us. Was potentially going to be really hard on there. I wanted to get on there on the first day, get it out of the way, because I didn't want to be on there as the week got on. The more and more pressure it had, the worse it was going to get, I felt. Sadly, I did draw that on. My rotation put me on there on the last day. So each lake, there were 3 sections of 6. Obviously, you're looking for section wins every day. And the first day, I've drawn Beastie Peg 4. Now, in all honesty, the worst peg in the section. It's not that it's a bad peg. I've actually had my biggest weight from Decoy off that peg actually, but that day I had a load of room, and in this festival it was pegged 2, 3, 4, 5, then there was some room up to 8, and then peg 9. Now, people that don't know Beastie Lake, peg 1 is like in a corner. It's in a bay of its own. Peg 1 wasn't in, and the peg 1 to your right, there's a big bank comes out to about 13 metres, like all reeds. It's deep along there. Does hold some fish. One's, let's say, because it's 1 there, and then the bank comes round to peg 30 in front of you, so you are in your own little lake there. Not the best, and that's why it wasn't in. Peg 2, you've got the big bank coming one side of you, and to your right there's another bank, so you're again you're in your own little lake almost. It's been a really, really good peg this year, especially with the wind going into it, and the wind was sort of coming across into it on the day, so that's potentially some really big fish to catch. You've got your margins against that. You are in your own little bit of lake. Peg 3, you've obviously got the banking to your left, which is to 2's right. Again, really good for catching along there, and then you've got a big tree falling in, and you can catch shallow and stuff down there. So I'm just looking around. Next door's neighbour's dog has walked in the garden. You can see him through the window looking at us. Yeah, so 3's got plenty of things to do. You've got an island in front of 3. It goes all the way down to 6. I was on peg 4. Now you've got a little bank and comes out. It's not a long way. It's only like goes out to like top 4, and then the same this side of you. There is a lovely shallow bit on a top kit and a short 4 just before it goes out. It's like 18 inches deep. It's perfect, in all honesty, for catching carp, which is, if you've got a bit of room, it's a great edge peg, but obviously I didn't. Then this peg 5, which is open water. It's a good peg. There used to be some trees in the water there, and they've ripped them out. There's roots there. It's a bit snaggy, but really, really good edge peg. And with all that room, I thought that would be a good edge. And then it goes up to the next peg in the section was 8, which is right in the corner. It's the peg a lot of us wanted. The wind was sort of going in there as well. It was coming into 2. 3 and 4 sort of missed it, and then 5 just caught some wind as it was coming around the side of the island, and then it was blown into that corner. So we thought 8 would be really good. And then there's no one down the next bank. There isn't a peg there, and you come back round and there's a bridge, and there's a load of people fish down there from 9 to 13. And 13 is almost looking at 8. Like it's the spit, and you fish off the back of the spit, and then you fish the other way. And peg 9 is just over the bridge in the corner there, next to the bridge. Again, it's a flyer. So peg 4 didn't really have a lot going for it in that section. And Carl Williams on 3. Can't remember who's on 2. Adam Wayman on 2. Carl Williams on 3, who does some damage there when he's on fish. He's an animal. Does catch a lot of fish. Had young Zach Warby, brilliant young angler on 5. Can't can't remember who was on 8, and then Adam Major round on 9, who does really well at Decoy. I thought he'd win the section there. He's one of the best pegs on the lake when they're there. So tactics wise, I've obviously set up a rig for fishing in that shallow edge, top kit and a short 4. You've got a tree this side of you, so I've set up three shallow rigs. You've got fish a foot deep. I've set up a foot and a foot and a half of sort of F1 gear, and then 1 at a foot for carp with some heavier gear for carp. I was going to throw casters down there. I've set up a rig for fishing hard pellets on a top 6. Just going to throw 6 mils, fish a 6 or an 8 on the hook. The same rig I could use at 13 metres if it was hard. Thought that might come into play mid-match. And then I've set up a rig for fishing cat meat, a heavy cat meat rig on a top kit and a short 4 in front of me, which just put me at the bottom of the shelf. It's really close to you. And I could use the same rig for fishing worms under my caster line. The only other thing I've set up is a 10-foot Horizon Pro with a large pellet feeder on for chucking to the island. But you're never going to win on the feeder there. It's just to keep an odd fish coming. So I've started on cat meat, sure, never had a bite. Seemed a bit strange and no one was catching. Normally you get, even if it's hard, you get some early fish, and there weren't those. So I've gone out on, I've tried my caster line quickly because I've seen a couple of swells there, never caught anything. In all honesty, I've fed it all day with casters, never had a fish, and I've had 1 skimmer on worms underneath it. So I'm not going to go into any more with that because it hasn't worked. So I've got out on the top 6 just fishing pellets. I've had 3 big skimmers, foul hook, 3 carp. They just didn't want to know. Normally you get a couple of early mugfish. There were obviously some cruising through, but just foul hookers. So I've chucked the feeder out. I had half hour on that. I've had 1 about £10 on it. There was just nothing being got. Zach caught 1 big one on the feeder. He had 2 big ones on the feeder in the end, so he was winning the section from what I could see because there was just nothing being caught. So I've gone out and started pinging at 13 metres with hard pellets, 6 mils. Gone out with an 8 mil on there. It's been exactly the same short. I've got a skimmer, but you were foul looking at them. They just didn't want to know. It was weird. Most of the bites are coming right. The float wasn't lifting right out of the water. It was your float would go on and your strike and your elastic would come out. So they were near the bottom, I felt, but just couldn't get a bite. I've set a couple of shallow rigs up for slapping pellets. I've got on the deeper one, like 2.5 foot, not a sign. So I've got a little 10-foot, got my little 9-foot rod out the bag, set a bomb up, chucked that. Had an F1 straight away, and then no signs at all. Gone back on the deck and you fell looking. In the end, I just left it because it was just, they just weren't feeding. And then it's gone really flat, calm, and you could see what it was. There was fish. There weren't muggers. They were flying through the swim. There were a few out towards the island. It's like 35 metres. It's a fair way away. You could see that were like sort of sat there. So I've got off my box again, set a little waggler up, tiny little waggler. I've chucked that. And they didn't want to know, you had to have a decent sized waggler to get out there. And then it's gone flat calm. And I've put a small waggler on, and I've caught 4 on it, and they were all like 8-pounders. And then the winds got up again. You've had to change to a heavier waggler, and they were so spooky, you just couldn't, I didn't want to know. But you couldn't get out there with a lighter float. It was too far. So that was a bit frustrating. So I've gone back on the pole at 13 metres. Now the wind was back a little bit, and I've got a little ripple, and it's changed it. I've started to catch, and I've started to catch quite well. Not losing any foul hookers. They were all eating now. They're obviously getting their heads down. I started to catch a few of them. There's nothing being caught in the section, so I was quite a way ahead in all honesty. I've started throwing back at 6 metres, and I've dropped on that, and I've caught really well on that for half hour. I caught a few carp again on F1 as well. And I was cruising in the section, if I'm honest. From what I could see, I couldn't see 8 and 9, but yeah, cruising. With 2 hours to go, I fed the edge with micros and dead maggots in that shallow water. Not seeing a sign then, I thought I'd just give it a quick go. And just as I turned around, I've seen the tail. And I've gone in, caught 4 big uns in 4 shots. I thought, oh, we're going to empty it here. Then I couldn't get a bite there. It went from tails everywhere to nothing. And And to be honest, for an hour I've really not caught a lot. I've tried pellets again, short, and it's not worked. I'd stopped feeding long because I was catching much shorter, and in the end I have pinged a few long, gone straight on it and caught one, but I've wasted half an hour trying to catch short. And in the last 20 minutes they've come back in the edge and I've caught 2 or 3, and one was like nearly 20 pound. And then I was just gone back in and there was a big one there, a tail, and I was praying it was going to have it. The float wobbled and then they shouted all out and I've not caught it. Now, so I was cruising in the section till the last hour and a half, and Zach next door with that room has gone down his edge. He's got one above. He's had 16 carp down the edge the last hour and a half, and I thought it's going to be really close here. I've been miles ahead, but and when we've weighed in, I've had 169 pound, and Zach has had 173. So it was one fish, not the perfect start. Zach there was another 173. Just beat Zach by 2 ounces. Not in our section. That was on the lake, and they played the top 2 on the lake. So I was 4th on the lake, but 2nd in section, so not ideal. Sam Collett won it on 13, the end of the spit. Really, really good F1 peg. He's caught 250 pound of F1 shallow. They were just there, the ripple was right. So not the perfect start. I was really happy with it from the peg I'd had, in all honesty, but I'd say that room's just beat me late on. I should have pinged pellets longer, sooner. I would have got another fish, I think, which would have been a nice, perfect start then, but it wasn't to be. Now, moving on to day 2, I was on Oak, which fished really, really, really well the day before. The 3 sections on there, you needed 270, 280 pound to win each section. I've drawn the farthest section. Now they do the pegs, it's not in a row, it's opposite each other, like, so you've got 3 sections of the lake, and I've drawn M peg 16 with the wind going up there. He had won the section. Matt Wiles had 280 pound there, 2nd on the lake. Now what I'd been interested in, speaking to everyone, you always can't stress how important enough it is to speak to people that have been on that lake the day before. Take the time to find out all what's been caught and how it's been caught, because it is invaluable to you. Don't just go with preconceived ideas. Normally on there it's a wedge fishing, and actually fishing in a bit deeper water had been best. Jimmy Brooks had won the lake off 21, great peg. He fished like in 3 foot of water out from the bank, tapping in pellets. Yeah, caught nearly 290 pounds. So Matt Wiles had done the same where I was. Now it's right in a corner. He sat right on the corner. You've got a little bay here, tiny little bay, but it's all dead reeds and stuff in there. It's not very good. And then you've got just reeds all along the bank, and I plumbed up along there. And I've got that sort of 3 foot tight along all the bank. The only problem was it was set to be very, very windy. Now I got 11 metres of pole out, plumbed up, and by the time, well, before we'd even started, it was so windy. I've put my pole away, got my margin pole out. I could fish 9 metres just about. Nice heavy float, wire stem float. I had to fish a 418 wire stem float, and then fishing half pellets in 3 foot. That's how windy it was. So I've done that. I've thrown hard pellets short, cat meat on a top kit, start there, like I say, it's a great starter. And then I've plumbed up in the edge, and it was all reeds, but there was a bit in the reeds, tiny little hole, and I've got 2 foot there, so I've had micros and dead maggots there straight away, just to see. Like I said, the wind was coming up there, so it looked ideal. It started on cat meat, had a carp and then an F1. Wasn't a huge amount being caught early on. Gone in the edge and I've caught 4 straight away, and then I've never had another bite down there all time. So I've gone now and tapping pellets in, on 9 metres tapping pellets in, like on the start of the reeds. And caught really well. They weren't massive fish by Oak standards, but lots of 4 and 5 pounders instead of the really big ones, but it was good. And then the wind just got worse and worse, and I couldn't fish there. I've had to come back, and to be honest, it's ruined my match because I just couldn't fish. I thought about setting a bomb up, but you had to be so tight to the reeds because it shelved away so steep, and they wanted that depth of water. So I battled on. I've come in a bit closer and I caught a few, but it was really, I couldn't even fish 6 metres by the end down there. It's ruined my day. it was potential for a really big weight there, I felt. I could hold 5 metres in front of me on my hard pellets, never had a bite there, and I needed somewhere to go because I couldn't fish anywhere else. And in the end, what I've done, I've chopped up a load of worms, put a load of casters, some corn, some 4 mils in it, and I've put 2 big pots in at 5 metres, battled away, caught 2 or 3 more carp down the edge, or in the corn a bit, should I say, on hard pellets. Kept topping it up with a big cup, really positive, trying to take them down in the deep water. And the last hour's been really good there. Fished 2 worms over it. You could see it fizzing even with the waves on it. And they've been much bigger fish as well. So I was wishing I'd done that a bit sooner. Now I had a section of doom, in all honesty. Zach was across from me again. Next to him was Tom Edwards, Sam Collett next to me. All really good anglers. Sam's really struggled. He's not caught anything in the edges or anything. They haven't wanted to be, I know it sounds strange, but because the wind was so rough, the waves, there was like foot waves on it at times. By the time it had come up the lake and into our corner, we were getting it the worst. They haven't wanted to be in that such disturbed water. It turned and was coming across into us a bit as well. Let's say Sam's not caught a lot at all. Now Tom and Zach were now at turn were missing a bit, and they've caught really well in their edges where it was out of the wind a little bit. Still had a ripple on it because it was that windy, but they weren't getting the full brunt of it, like disturbing the water. It was literally turning the water up brown. They didn't want to be in it there, so and they've caught really well in the edges late on. And I caught, Tom had got 26 carp, Zach had got 23, I'd got over 30, but they were smaller fish. And I've weighed 212 £, and Tom's beat me for the section by 1 fish again. 220 £, less fish but much bigger fish, as they are in the edge generally. So again, I was wishing I'd done the caster short a bit sooner, like the big pot in, but I think that was just time of day, so it wouldn't have made any difference. I honestly think if the wind hadn't been quite as bad, I would have caught 300 £+ plus. So another second in section. Tom was second on the lake, I was third. Down where Jimmy was, not on 21 this time, on 23, he's had 280 £, annihilated the lake. It's just really seems there's a lot of fish there. That is a good area anyway. So now I was on 4 points. I thought I really need, without us fishing, I needed a win. 5 points I thought they were paying the top 5, might just get me in. But it hadn't, I'd say, although it was a good draw on paper, on the conditions, it wasn't. It was just horrific in the wind, so not ideal. So we went into the last day going on to U, which was just, there was 1 peg that Jimmy Brooks has had it the second day, had 200 £. The first day Sam Brown had it, had nearly 200 £. When other people on the lake catching 10 £, just seeing loads of fish there. So if I didn't draw that peg 12, I didn't want to be in that section. And the lake, it generally, like 1 and 30 of the end pegs by the car park, it's been dreadful down there and got better as it goes up. And I've drawn peg 7, which was the first peg in the second section, so I knew my section was going to get better as it went on. So again, not a good draw in all honesty. The wind was better today. There was still a bit of a breeze, but you could fish. To be honest, I've set up the kitchen sink because I thought I could be fishing for just a bite or 2. It's going to be working hard for it. The nice thing with peg 7 is you can get into lots of different depths in the edges and stuff. So I've set up to fish hard pellets on a top 5. That was where I was going to start. A few people had said there was a bite or 2 to be had early on that, so I've set up for that. I've set up to fish, I've set the shallow rigs from Beastie, they're still on my short kit, so I set them up. I've set a rig up to fish on the deck. It's the same depth all the way out. It was only like 4 foot deep, so I've set up a rig for fishing worms underneath that, or on the bottom. Set up to fish worms and casters down. There's some barbel and I to catch. I thought worms and casters down, like 2.5 foot down to 8's platform. You could see 8's platform all right. Some pegs got big rigs, but you could see that, so I've set up to do that. There've been fish caught being thrown maggots in like 3 foot down the edge. I've got that on a top 6 this way, so or big cut maggots on that. I've got a shallow edge closer to me on my left, so I've set up to fish that with Mike. Cause I just set up everything in all honesty, just to give myself a chance of a few bites. I've actually had a really good start. I've actually started short on pellets. I've caught 2 carp. Again, fishing new and massive, but these weren't. They were 4 or 5 pounders, but good start when I thought it was going to be awful. And then, like everyone else, I've just sat there. We've not caught a lot. And I've changed, stopped throwing my pellets. I've put another section on, started throwing casters by hand. I thought I could maybe catch some F1s. I said, not caught a lot. Well, I've not caught anything. And then there was an odd carp moving around, and I've just put a 6mm, like slapping a caster, but I didn't catch anything. I put a red 6mm pellet on, just made a bit more noise, moved all my shot underneath my float, just a foot deep, foot of line above, slapping a red pellet around my casters. And I've started to catch an odd one. They were good fish as well. Not many, I had 5 or 6. Lost 2 or 3 as well. I had 3 in the feed and 3 slapping it around, slapped in front of a couple and dobbed one around my feed. But the last 2 hours has just been horrific. They disappeared from there. There was odd fish getting caught in the edge across. The guy opposite me packed up returns to go. He hadn't had a bite, literally hadn't had a bite. And I don't know if it's coincidence, I'm sure it's not, because Carl Williams was in my section next to him that way. Steve Witness was the other side of him, not in my section. And as soon as he's packed up, they both fished that way. With that bit of room, they both got down the edge, and I knew Carl was then beating me, and I needed my edge to go. The shallow edge was rubbish, the maggot edge never had a bite. I had a barbel and a carp down to the next platform on worms, but they never came in until the last 10 minutes, and then I started getting some liners. There were signs of fish there, but didn't catch one, it was too late. And I've weighed 75 pound, I think. Carl's won the section and the lake, and the lake with 116 pound. So he's not caught a lot till then caught some big fish down that edge. So that's cost me again. So another 2 points. Did default the section again, another 75 quid. And I thought it was game over. Did have a good weight though. And as they've called the results out, that 6 points actually got in, and I've been the biggest weight. So I have just framed. I've got 5th in the festival, another 500 quid. So from my draws, really happy with that. Jimmy Brooks won the festival, drawn like the best peg on his lake every day. Absolutely annihilated it. Don't give anglers like him pegs like that. Steve Freeman was 2nd, again with 3 points, drawn really well again. There were a couple on 5, and then I was on 6. And let's say I should have had 5 points definitely, and I'd have got in 3rd on weight. So it's learnt a lot from it. It wasn't perfect festival, didn't draw well, but I'm happy we got in the frame. I always say you can't always win every festival, but it's nice to frame. That's what you've got to aim for, is framing every festival. So that was the Decoy Festival out of the way. On from there, we moved on to the 2-day floatfish. I'll do a separate video in a minute for you. I'll see you again in a couple of minutes.